Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the globe. Hi, I'm Jim Harrison, ready to do another live stream presentation for you. Today, I'm going to be talking about the essential oil quality trap. Facts, myths, fantasies, and lies. I may be overdoing it with that title, but yeah, I'm going to get to all that. That's what I'm going to do today. That's what I'm going to talk about today. I am Jim Harrison, and I've been working with essential oils for a very, 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 very long time, over 25 years. And I don't know, I think I've done almost everything you can, except I've never been a distiller, which I'm going to talk about today. That's a subject for today, distillation. It's not one of the things I do, but I have created or co-founded a natural plant-based skincare company, primarily focused on the essential oils, along with everything else. I've been an educator for that whole 25 plus years, and I don't know. I've just really analyzed essential oils inside out, upside down, and every other way. And quality is one of those things that always comes up that we need to talk about. This is my contact information if you'd like to get in touch with me and talk about anything. I do come to your resort, spa, whatever, and I'll do staff training on essential oils, on plant-based ingredients in your skincare, techniques, and other things like that. And I also do guest experiential workshops. So if you bring me out for a staff training, I can also do little fun things with your guests. Always interesting, always fun. That's my contact information. I'm going to get rid of that so we can get into this cool presentation. So here's what we have going on with essential oil quality trap. Let me first start, before I get into talking about the actual quality of essential oils. The question, or one of the many questions I get asked a lot, is what's the best brand? What brand do you use? Who has the best essential oils? My dear friends, there is no best. There is not a best essential oil. There are good, bad, and everything in between. But essential oils are like wine. If you're not a wine drinker, you may not understand what I'm saying there. But if you're a wine drinker, you understand complexity, quality, all of these factors that go into a really good glass of wine. It's never the best. There's incredible vintners, and the vintners are the ones who kind of take it from the plant to the pressing to the vintning of the wine. That's a skill. And so when you have a great bottle of wine, you talk about this great vintner, but it's never the best. This isn't the best. That's not the best. That's not the best. And essential oils are just like that. So quality is really something that you want to pay attention to on a different level than what we're generally exposed to. So I don't know. I think we should just kind of jump into this, and I'll show you what's going on. Prezi video. They asked me to re-sign up this morning because this is a really cool presentation thing, this Prezi thing. So I guess I didn't do it right because the watermark is there. We're just going to deal with that for today, aren't we? Sure, because we're talking about quality. And quality is a three-pillar system when we generally think about quality. These are the three main factors that we discuss whenever we talk about quality of essential oils. And so the quality of essential oils, purity is your number one thing that you want to pay attention to. And 100% natural. I'm not using natural as a marketing term here. Okay. So whatever natural means in the marketplace, what I'm talking about here is natural as a substance that is removed from a plant and not changed. Okay, so in its natural state, you want your essential oils to be 100% pure, which means 100% natural, free from adulterants and synthetics, other carriers, which means that no sunflower seed or any other oil is thrown into that essential oil. And you also don't want pesticides. that's a different challenge when we talk about pesticide, because there are some oils, I can't think off the top of my head, that I can't find organic. And do I know whether they have pesticides or not? The testing shows minimal or none. So they do have to be tested if you want to know about pesticide residue in your essential oils. Chemical profile must contain the right compounds in the right natural ratios. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, because I'm going to talk about the testing, which is gas chromatography, that analyzes the structure, the chemical structure of the oil. And I'll talk about how do we know it's the right balance of chemical compounds. How do we know that, the natural ratio? I'll explain that. I will. Promise, I really will. The authenticity. You want to know that the oil is coming from the plant described on the label. If it says eucalyptus, it should be eucalyptus. And not only should it say eucalyptus, it should say what species, genus of essential oil or the plant. Eucalyptus radiata, Eucalyptus globulus, Eucalyptus polybractea, and then there are other levels of analyzing, or not so much analyzing, but documenting the botanical species that the oil is coming from. So these are the three pillars, if this is all you need to know. So thanks. That's my presentation for today. Now, I have more to say, as always. That is the start, though. If that's your core. You need to know that. And now let's go into a few other things, like how about the chemical profile, which is really the heart of quality. And the heart of quality, that's in the industry. That's what we look at. That's what, pretty much, if somebody tells you they have high quality essential oils, they will always present a chemical profile, a chemical analysis, which again, I mentioned it and I'm going to talk about it. Complexity is a word I like to use a lot. Complexity, when I talk about complexity, I'm talking about the chemical structure. I'm talking about the complexity of that chemical structure. And one of the ways that I define essential oils is I will tell you that they are a complex mixture of compounds. I actually have more that goes along with that, but I'm going to leave it there. It's a complex mixture of, multi-target compounds. I wasn't going to say that because then I'd have to explain it. Multi-target has to do with the way that the receptors on cells. So a complex mixture of multi-target compounds, that is complexity. That's what we're talking about. We want to see, when we look at that chemical analysis, we want to see the complete structure of the oil. We want to know right down to some of those trace elements, because everything that's in that oil is going to have an effect on the therapeutic properties. It's going to have an effect on the quality of that oil. It's going to have an effect on how that essential oil behaves. So complexity, really important. There's hundreds of compounds in each essential oil. And your therapeutic results are going to rely on that synergy of not only the major, like when you see lavender, the major compounds are linalool acetate and linalool. And that's what defines and says, what do I have in my oil? Well, I have, stress relieving and antispasmodic properties from my linalool acetate, and soothing properties, calming also, from my linalool content. And that's cool. But lavender does a lot more than that. The reason lavender does a lot more than that is because it's a very complex oil. It has a majority of those two compounds I just mentioned, but it also has hundreds of other compounds in it. And those other compounds are giving lavender the quality that lavender has, and what we know about lavender, which is it kind of does almost everything. And it's because of its complexity. It's because of not only those two major compounds, but because of the minor compounds, the ones that are at trace, the ones that are at 0.01%, the ones that are at 1%, 5%, 3%. It's a mixture of molecules that are giving lavender its overall identity, therapeutically and as a fragrance. What's this all about? Source factors. When it comes to quality, we want to know source factors. We want to know where that oil is coming from in as much detail as we can possibly get. The most important factors when it comes to the source of that oil. So when I'm talking about the source, we talked about authenticity, and the authenticity is the botanical species. Who is it? What is it? Eucalyptus radiata, lavandula angustifolia, all the botanical names that go along with those oils. You want to know that. I mean, that's minimum, is just having that species and genus name on there. So what matters in other factors are the terroir. Where was that oil grown? And that's geography, it's soil, climate, also elevation. There are all these factors that go into determining the therapeutic structure or the chemical structure of your essential oil. And so what we have going on here is identifying where the oil is coming from. Now, if you get into essential oils and become an essential oil geek, as I am, these things become identifiable. What I mean by that is, I'm going to go back to the wine analogy before I tell you the essential oil story. So the wine analogy is French wines have a certain identity because of the terroir, because of the history of winemaking. Italy also. And here I am in Seattle, Washington State in the USA. And we have a wine industry. So over the Cascade Mountains in the eastern part of the state, there's grape growing and there's winemaking. Really good wines. California is also really well known as one of the major areas where wines are produced. But when it comes to wine, where that wine is coming from, it's going to change what it is. California is not French, which is not Italian, which is not Australian, which is not Chilean. All of these different places where the wines come from, they're different. And there's a lot of things that make those differences, but that geographical location is one of the more important factors that goes into that. Now, using an essential oil analogy, lavender, we'll use lavender again, because right here across the water from Seattle, there are sort of a lavender area. They have a lavender festival every year, and they produce lavender essential oils. Not a lot, but you can get some pretty nice lavender oils from the distillers across the water from Seattle. Also, California does produce some lavender, French. I don't know if there's any Italian. There probably is. Bosnian. So the main producers in the essential oil market where you're going to find lavender are French and the Bosnian. You'll get some from England, some from other areas, but the majority of the oil that we get is Bosnian or French. And if I compare all of these quality from a quality perspective that we're talking about, they all can be really good quality. My preference is French, and especially the ones coming from Provence. There's a certain character, there's a certain nuance that I prefer when it comes to lavenders. Now, therapeutically, are they different? A little bit, but not that much where you're going to choose a certain region for therapeutic properties, because they're very similar, especially Bosnian and the French. But there's something about the character, nuance, fragrance, and I prefer that French. Cultivation is another factor that goes into the source. This is about, is it organic? Is it wildcrafted? All the levels of looking at the plant itself and how it was grown. And then also how it was harvested. The precise moment. There's a time when you harvest the plant to get the most oil or to get the most, therapeutic value from the oil. So these are source factors. These go into the quality of your essential oil. Now, a good distributor, a good seller of essential oil will be able to talk about these things. So they're on your list for things to pay attention to. Now, here's the baseline verification when it comes to looking at essential oils. Gas chromatography. In gas chromatography, what we're talking about is a testing system. And what the test is the oil goes into a chamber, it evaporates, and this image at the top is the gas chromatograph. It's what you get as a result of doing gas chromatography with an essential oil. This is when any seller says we test our oils. This is the main test they are talking about, because this test tells you what the complexity of your essential oil is. It also tells you whether there's any adulterants in there, like synthetics, or if you have lavender. I'm using lavender a lot as an example because it just fits so well. Sometimes lavender is adulterated with lavandin, which is a really great oil on its own. But if you're buying lavender, you don't want to buy lavandin. Lavandin is a sort of lavender light. It's a linalool acetate, linalool, two compounds I talked about, but it has less of the minor composition. It's not as complex as lavender. So great oil on its own, but lavandin is not lavender. And so a test can determine whether the oil has been adulterated with a natural like lavandin or with synthetics or whatever. So this is baseline verification. This is the when they talk about testing, gas chromatography is the main way that oils are tested. I'm noticing that I have my logo there, and I don't need that there. It's sort of interrupting, isn't it? There. I'm on two screens. That's what that Prezi video thing is. I don't know why that didn't update properly. But this is really cool. I really like the way this Prezi video is, but I have to look at another thing to really see what you guys are seeing. All I know is you're seeing me, you're seeing my presentation, and I'm continuing to talk about what we need to talk about, which is mass spectrometry. So the mass spectrometry, and generally what you'll see is we test our oils, GCMS, gas chromatography that I just talked about, and mass spectrometry. What the mass spec does is it actually looks at the structure of the molecule itself. And this test was started to determine whether that linalool acetate actually is linalool acetate from the lavender distillation, or is it a synthetic linalool acetate that was added after the distillation. So the mass spec analyzes the structure and quality of the essential oil molecule. Now, the other tests they do, optical rotation and these other metrics, refractive index, such as specific gravity. I'm not a chemist, so these are things that I understand. It's about the molecular structure, and these things determine whether synthetic or coming straight from the plant, as the word natural would say. One of the things I wanted to point out that I didn't do here, let me show you something. Take a look at this image at the top. Okay, so we GC test all our oils. This is what a seller will tell you. And this tells you about quality. I want you to look at that graph. Can you tell that the oil is adulterated, whether it contains synthetics, whether it's a good quality from looking at that graph? I would say, unless you are a GC chemist and a skilled GC chemist, I doubt you can read that. I can't read that, but that's what they're telling you that they're testing with. That's what this is what a seller is convincing you of. And I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about what all that means. So let's go to the next guy here, and let's talk about what I'm referring to as the quality trap. What the quality trap is the language and the definitions and the marketing that sellers will do to convince you that they have a quality essential oil. Now, quality as a baseline, remember, it's the authenticity, it's the purity, and these are the factors that determine that you have a quality oil. Okay, if those are satisfied, then it's good. No adulterants, straight from the distillation without any changes, and that's baseline right there. That's all you need to know. As long as you're absolutely sure that the seller is selling you an oil that is nothing added to it, pure. Its chemical structure is whole. It hasn't been changed in the distillation. I'm going to talk about the skill of the distillation to determine complexity. And then also authenticity. It's coming from a plant it's on the label. It says what it is, and you're pretty secure in knowing that the seller has given you those. That's your baseline. Now, what happens is marketing needs to convince you further because they have competition. One of the main terms that came out, and it wasn't just in these big sellers in marketing, the essential oil industry even started using this terminology of therapeutic grade. My oil's therapeutic grade. It really is therapeutic grade. It's a meaningless term. Did I say that enough times? It's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. Therapeutic grade is no regulation for it, no standard, no anything to imply this superiority of therapeutic grade. I even use comparisons to things that we wouldn't want to use in essential oil. Like there is a synthetic sandalwood that was tested for being a wound healing compound, or the compound was sandalore, which is the synthetic of santalol, which is in the natural sandalwood oil. So the sandalore was analyzed. I think they used the whole oil, but they talk about the sandalore in this test, and it would heal a wound. So what that means is that this synthetic is therapeutic grade. So if you tell me your essential oils are therapeutic grade, I still have to determine whether you mean therapeutic grade as the natural that came right from the plant, or therapeutic grade of the synthetic that can also have these therapeutic properties. So therapeutic grade is completely misleading. And then you'll see, this is always good. And I'm not dismissing any of these companies. I think it's necessary in marketing. In marketing, you have to convince the consumer that they want to buy from you. So I understand that, this is the game. This is how you do it. And you'll find lots of, definitions like therapeutic grade out there that sellers trying to convince you their oil is high quality. They also have things that they trademark, like the CPTG, which I think used to mean certified pure therapeutic grade, and they changed that because they're realizing that everyone is dismissing the term therapeutic grade. So now they're saying was it certified pure therapeutic grade? I think I'm not therapeutic, tested grade, which is good. Testing your oil, it's important. I'm going to talk about that even more. It's a big deal in quality. The other one, seed to seal. I know that a company years ago started doing that, and then a couple other companies. But one of them, I asked AI to just find a couple examples, and this is what they pulled up. Probably the two biggest, most popular essential oil companies out there is where these come from. So seed to seal, that's cool. And this is important. This is, when you get into the issue of sustainability, you do want to hear about seed to seal. So these are good terms to help you understand or to recognize that these companies are making an attempt at selling a quality essential oil. And they're convincing you that they're doing that by coming up with these standards of definition, and also, these trademarked, whatever you want to call them. So this is what you are facing when you're looking for the therapeutic quality of an essential oil. So more labeling, pure, organic. Anyone can say that. None of this is regulated. I'm actually trying to convince Amazon that they should stop selling synthetic oils labeled as 100% pure organic. They do that. They label it as 100% pure organic. Now, organic, they could get in trouble for, because organic actually has a certification, I guess is the best way to look at the way to determine whether it's really organic or not. But I have seen some oils on Amazon labeled as organic that aren't even real oil. And I can tell that by price. But I actually went out and bought a few, and this amazing chemist, Dr. Satyal, who he's the guy. If you want to analyze your oils, he's the guy. I mean, there's a few people that I trust when it comes to GC and the analysis, but Dr. Satyal, just incredibly skilled at analyzing oils and finding little just bits of things that would hide from any other analyst. And he's finding these things that are determining, well, that may be relating to a synthetic compound. So anyway, Amazon's selling synthetics. And the reason I brought up Dr. Satyal is he actually tested a few of those, and he shows that no way. Okay. So I can tell by the price, but you can also tell, if you get that testing done. And they're labeled pure, and some of them are labeled organic, and none of them contain any essential oil, the ones that I bought. So good luck to me on that mission, but I'm going to keep trying. So purity and organic alone do not guarantee quality or therapeutic value. Even if it's really pure, even if it's really organic, that puts you in the right direction, but it's not necessarily telling you have the highest quality essential oil that you can possibly get, which I am going to define for you. So here's another thing. We use third-party testing. Now, I just mentioned Dr. Satyal. If they were willing, which most companies are not, to show me who tested the oils, I could have more trust in that. Now, because you're not in this field, but some of you are who are listening. So hi, how's it going? I want to look at this as the more you know, and the more you understand who the big players are, like Dr. Satyal, and then there's a company out of Canada that from what I know, they do pretty good analysis. But again, I can't read these things. I have to trust. We're going to talk about the trust factor. But third-party testing, that is a good sign that they're saying, no, we didn't do it. They did it, and they're honest and all that kind of stuff. Cool. So what are the limits of this lab testing that I'm talking about? This would be the technical trap. So the seller is telling you that they GC test their oils, and they also, look for pesticide and a lot of other things in the purity issue, and that's good. But the GC, like I just said, is only as effective as the skill as the GC analyst, the chemist. And I've known a lot of people who do GC, and I've only had a handful that I actually would trust. So the GC needs to be done by someone who knows how to read these GCs. Now, the tool is for detection, again, not a guarantee of quality or the efficacy, the effectiveness of the essential oil. This is definitely a trap, the standardization trap. ISO, the International Standards Organization, or actually it's the International Organization of Standards. I don't know why it's called ISO there, but that's the way they do it. What they do is they have a data bank of what, on a GC, you're looking at a GC graph with the compounds listed. I'll explain that because I didn't when I showed you the other graph. So in the ISO standardization, they have a data bank that shows you this is what lavender should look like. This is what peppermint should look like. This is what chamomile should look like. Roman chamomile looks like. Cape chamomile looks like. German chamomile looks like. So they have a data bank. And when you do the testing, you can compare to these charts that they have as standards and compare. Is it accurate? I think that's a good idea, but it's not something that I trust. even a little bit. I don't even trust that a little bit. It's good that we have a standard and we should understand, but geographical location is going to change the structure. So then you need to have a data bank, and they do this. Yeah, they have it. So the French lavender, the Bosnian lavender, I don't know if anyone's ever bothered to do the Washington State lavender. I say that like it doesn't matter. Yeah, it matters, but they're very small producers. So I don't know. That's why I don't know. Anyway, what I see as kind of an issue here is that a good adulterator, I don't even know how to define that. Someone who adulterates oils, there's a skill set to that, and they can fool the GC. And there's several ways they can fool the GC. That's why you need a really good analyst, like how many times have I mentioned his name, Dr. Satyal. He really knows how to pull the information out of these graphs. So I want to show you just a little bit, because I didn't really define it too much. On that graph, you can with the peaks and the valleys, they all have numbers, and there's a data bank for what those numbers refer to, and what they refer to is the individual molecule, and the timing is the bottom part where you're looking at the timing. And the percentage is how high that graph or that peak is going. So in this oil, you're seeing that there's high peaks early in the graph, and then there's a few more higher peaks. And I think this one is peppermint. And so we're probably looking at menthol and menthone, and those are the two main compounds in peppermint. The way the data bank works is it takes those numbers, turns them into the molecules, and the molecules are listed in percentage. And this is really what you can work with. I'll explain how you can work with that. But you can't work with that graph unless you know how to analyze the oil, right? Or analyze that graph. So here we have the standards that can really invite skilled adulteration. But we still need to compare. There still needs to be something as a guide. How about the marketing illusion and the rigor trap? And what I'm referring to there is we, third-party test and purity test, and we test, GC test, and we test for, whatever they want to say they test for. And all good things, okay? The testing is important. When it's used for marketing, the testing sometimes doesn't match the oil that the seller is selling, okay? And I'm talking about sellers without integrity, which, about 80% or more, just bad oils out there. So there are really fine, nice essential oils out there that you can get. It's not hard to find, okay? But you need to understand how the seller is trying to sell you, and their marketing, and all of the factors that go in to what that seller is saying and what the truth is, and how does that relate to actual quality essential oil. So the rigor trap, I'm referring to how they look at science and science, and we science, and we science, and we research and science, and all these other things. Even this, I find one of the phrases used in the professional aromatherapy market is evidence-based. Evidence-based is good. Prove it. Show me that it works. I like that. But evidence-based isn't always accurate or specific for what you're doing. So it's a good term, but for me, that falls into the rigor trap. It falls into, we have scientific documentation that our stuff works. Cool. When I look at the science, I can find flaws in the science, and I can find inconsistencies in the science, especially when it comes to therapeutic properties. But that's a different discussion. When you're using the oil, we're talking about the quality. So in the quality, in the rigor trap, you can have an oil that's not so good. The seller has a GC, and maybe the seller, has integrity and wants to have integrity, but maybe they just don't know. They got into the essential oil market because they found it interesting and loved it and had the money to invest. So they invest in selling oils, and they're given these GC analysis that to them is saying, oh, we have good oil. Look, we got to test it. We did the scientific step. And yeah, our oils are great. And maybe the testing wasn't so good. And the seller has no clue that their oil is synthetic, or their oil has adulterants, or their oil is just really poor quality in the complexity. So the rigor trap, that's what that's all about. Using science to say things that might necessarily not support quality. So you want to be careful of that one. Now, the real value of GCMS. I told you I'd tell you this, right? So the GC analysis, when you get a GC, and I always ask for a GC, not because I can tell whether the oil's been adulterated. I really have to trust who's doing the GC and their analysis, and they're saying, okay, there's no adulterants. Okay, I trust you. I have a lot of people I trust. I mean, I know what I'm looking for. That's why I can write this presentation, because I've done all this. I've spent, my over 25 years trying to figure out what quality really means. So the GC for me helps me to understand what can I do with that oil. There's lots of books and there's lots of webinars and there's lots of everything with people telling you what you can do with every oil out there. But that's in a way limiting. That gives you a start. But when you can actually analyze and look at the chemical structure, and you actually understand the chemical structure, you find so many uses for your oil. And you can even find explanations of why the oil has specific properties that you've heard about. So the GC does have value. If it's done well, it tells you whether the oil is adulterated or unadulterated and good quality. But it also tells you the complexity of the essential oil. It also tells you some of the therapeutic properties you may not have been familiar with within the oil. I have a chemistry class, and I don't have it out there yet, but if you want to, what I call easy essential oil chemistry, you can bring me to your space and I'll teach you this course. Right now it's in Russia. Russian school asked me if I would do this actually out of Azerbaijan. And, so I have the course done on video. And what I'm doing is I'm using GC. I'm actually teaching you how to read a GC so that you can analyze the complexity of the oil and learn how to use your oil. So it's not really even about the chemistry. Chemistry is a good thing to learn, but it's about words on paper, that GC that gives you the chemical compounds, those words. And then you have well, I guess not paper, you're going to have it on your screen, aren't you? And you can go through that and figure out what your oil will do. And that's what I like to teach. And that's the value and the complexity check of your essential oil. I'm just going to take a second here, because I don't usually do this, is to see what we're doing, if there's any comments in there. Jelena, I love it when you show up. Thank you. And thanks. You like my information. I appreciate that. I really do. I love it when the feedback that I get, and when I see that there's value in what I'm talking about. And I'm just sharing what I learned. It's a very complex field, this essential oil thing. And it doesn't have to be, so especially with the chemistry that I'm teaching and defining quality, it seems really complex, but, start with just the basic information and kind of move from there. And the more you know, the more you learn, the more complexity in this system that you actually understand, the better you're going to be at using your oils and selecting really good quality oils. So defining true quality. We're going to pivot to the producer, because this is quality for me. Okay. When it comes to quality, GC is cool, but without the person distilling that oil, the GC is meaningless, right? So here's where quality is who is producing that oil. And what I mean is it's the grower and the distiller. So the skill and the passion of the producer, farmer, and the distiller. I can say that word, really, I can. These are the things that make it work, okay? It's an art and it's a skill. And the distillers that I have met, the passion that they show me, I call it the love. Give me the love. I want to hear that passion. I one distiller out of Bavaria, when I was listening to him talk about his Angelica, and it was just the passion and the intensity he had at explaining just how he planted the Angelica plants. It wasn't even about the distillation, but that was enough for me to understand this guy cares. This guy is in that system. He is a distiller. He is the plant. He is the oil. This is where quality comes from. You really want to know the distiller story when you're looking for quality oils. And so it is a commitment to that optimal terroir, the geography, the environment, all that. Precise harvest timing, and then expert distillation techniques. These are the things that go into, and this is just some of it. This is just your basic. If you can get to know the distiller, that's really good. This is actually an AI of a typical Australian. No, it isn't. This is my friend John Day, who I do get some Australian oils from. John is an incredible, passionate distiller. And this is who I want to buy from. If you can know who you're buying from, if you can know the distiller, if you can know their passion, that's ideal. I know for most of us, no, that's not true. I don't know most of my distillers. There are some oils I don't even know anything I'm telling you about, right? When it comes to, understanding the quality, except for maybe the GC, but I have trusted friends that are connected to the distiller. Okay. Actually one friend. I'm not naming any names in this presentation. I just want you to understand that there's a lot of information that you want to kind of dive into, but these are the people, the Corsican helichrysum that I buy, it comes from two women they call the sisters. They're not nuns. They're not even sisters. I don't know why they're called the sisters. And I don't care too much about that. What I care about is they produce the finest helichrysum. And that's very subjective. There's another Corsican distiller who go, oh, they're not much. They're just another helichrysum. He actually produces a really fine helichrysum too. But there's something about the sisters' helichrysum that I personally respond to extremely well. Beautiful, beautiful distillation. And so this is what you're looking for. You're looking for the skill of the distiller. There's a timing, there's a pressure, there's a temperature. There are all these issues that go into pulling out the finest oil you can. I'm going to pull this up a little closer for you here because I want you to see this. Sourcing illusion, volume versus ethics. This is where you really get stuck, okay? So what I want to show you first, that's why I pulled this up a little closer for you. What's happening here is this is in Seville, Spain, and this is orange trees. This is harvest time for orange blossoms known as neroli essential oil. Now, what you're looking at is the guy to the left has a big long stick and he's just sort of banging the tree. The people underneath there with the hats on, they have a big tarp and it's collecting the neroli flowers. So what we're looking at here is, for me, it's part of the passion. It's part of the commitment to getting an incredibly good oil. That they're there banging the tree and having the flowers just fall into that tarp is telling me they care about what they are distilling. A lot of neroli essential oil ends up with the sticks and the leaves from the tree as well. There are three areas in the orange tree where essential oil comes from. The peel, which is always called orange. And in this case, this is bitter orange. Okay, so if it was coming from the peel, it would be the bitter orange. The most common orange is sweet orange. And so the peel, essential oil. You have sticks and leaves, which is referred to as petitgrain. And petitgrain is a nice oil. It's not the peel oil, and it's certainly not the flower oil. And then there's the flower, neroli. And so some harvesters will get some of the sticks and leaves because it gives them more volume, produces more oil. But these guys are very, very careful not to get sticks and leaves in the distillation. It is pure, beautiful, gorgeous, high quality neroli. It's really good. So you're going to hear stories from your sellers. We have these small farms and blah, 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 blah. And you want to hear these stories. So, when I source directly from producers, I'm looking at the community. I'm looking at the sustainability. I'm looking at all of the factors that go beyond just the distillation and the harvesting and the terroir and everything else. I'm looking at how this affects the community, how it affects the people who are producing these oils. That is so important. There was a time, and actually it's still happening, where real sandalwood was not available. Because in India, they were feared it was going to go extinct. So they stopped any production or selling of sandalwood oil. There's a synthetic, that Sandalore synthetic that I mentioned about wound healing. That was the synthetic that is mostly in the marketplace right now. And so now there's more and more sandalwood. But at the time when I could not get the Indian type sandalwood, Santalum album, and there was a production in Indonesia, pure, real sandalwood oil. But when I did a little bit more research on it, there was potential, possible, maybe, I think so, slave labor being used to produce that oil. I did not buy that oil. I would have loved to have had the sandalwood. I had a sample. It was beautiful. But I think that the karma in that oil, not so good. So you do care about who's producing it, not just the distiller, but the community, the people. And you're going to hear these stories, but my question is whether these guys, well, let me go back. I didn't have a slide for this. Whether these companies are actually getting enough oil, like these big companies. There's like 4 or 5, 6 of the most popular essential oil companies out there. They sell to a lot of people. There's a couple of these companies that are global. They sell to a lot of people. And they show you these nice small farms where they're getting their oil from. And I don't know for sure, though I have been confirmed in some ways on my suspicion, that instead of their oil coming from one source, they get their oil from a lot of different farms and then combine them. Or they have big batch, which is what I call industrial oil. The industrial oils, these big batch, are just fine. They're quality oils. They test well. Everything I just talked about for testing is there. It's present. But when I think of 2 things here, I don't want mixed oil. If you have several different suppliers, do several different lavender essential oils. And when you run out of your lavender mayette, okay, you're out. You're done. Because that's nature. That's life. That's the way it should work. Like those really good vintners, they can only produce so many cases of wine and then it's gone. That's the way the wine industry works. And that's really the way the best in the aromatherapy essential oil industry works. When you have something good like this neroli, when it's gone, it's gone. You have to wait till next year to get it again. But again, industrial. So you can get these huge, huge farms, and then they have these big, huge containers. I think some of the passion, some of the love is going to be missing. It's kind of like, you're buying a chair from this craftsman who works in his garage, and they are just amazing, incredible chairs. And then IKEA buys the guy out. It looks like the same chair, feels like the same chair, but it's just not the same when it's done on an industrial level. I shouldn't have used IKEA as an example because their reputation for the kind of quality they do is not it. But you know what I mean, right? You go from small production into huge industrial production, quality changes. That's what happens with these big producing oils. And actually, a lot of them were adulterated as well. None of them were synthetic, but they were adulterated. And through that practice of knowing what bad smells like to what extremely, extremely beautiful oils smell like, I've acquired a nose. I can smell complexity. And that's what I look for when I'm smelling an oil. I can smell complexity. One of these big companies came to me and asked me, do you want to smell our oils? And I said, no, because I don't want to judge anyone's oils. And the first thing is I was very surprised that they were real oils. And now I know about this company, and they're tested, and everything they do is everything you want from your oils. It's all the quality parameters. But what was the word I used? Flat. That was the word I used. I wasn't getting the complexity. I wasn't getting the nuance. I wasn't getting the vibrancy that you get from, my guy John Day, or the people in Seville, or the Bavarian producer with the Angelica. I wasn't getting that complexity. I wasn't getting that energy. I wasn't getting that story from the oil. The oils are good that these companies have. If they're tested and all that's proven, they're good. They're therapeutic. They're going to work. But they aren't what I buy. That's not, when I call oil high quality, everything, when I talked about distillation and all the sustainability and all those issues, that's high quality. It's your nose. That's how you're going to know about these things. It's your nose. Transparency. This is a challenge, okay? So the supplier must demonstrate trust without relying on proprietary or meaningless marketing terms. So yeah, they got to have that because, it's marketing, and you want to have the things that are going to tell your consumer that, yeah, we are the best. Okay. So, it's marketing, but that's not what you're going to rely on. Okay. So you want to dig in, you want to ask questions, and, the integrity of the seller links to technical data. So the GC and everything else with truth, big time. Sustainability, what's the sustainability story? Community focused source, and that's as an alternate to presenting the test as the end of quality, okay? You want to move beyond that. So truthful sourcing. So the consumer must be shown evidence of sourcing depth, the proof that the entire batch comes from a sustainable, dedicated source, not a blend of bulk supply and a story. In a way, that's fantasy. I promised fantasy in the presentation title, didn't I? Your producer or your seller can only go so far to give you information, because we do, and I am a seller, we do guard our resources. And the reason we do that is because when you're buying a really good oil, there's a quality or quantity issue. So you don't want everyone being able to buy that oil, right? So there are limits to what a seller will tell you, but as much information as you can get. And as long as the seller understands that this is important information, I'm going to give you as much as I can regarding, like that, I can show you that picture, tell you it's from Seville. And, you have to trust me that that's a real story. And then I didn't just get that, off the internet somewhere. So there is an element to understanding all this, that it's a real skill set, buying quality oils. I think I've said that before, and I'm saying it now. It's a skill. So the final takeaway here is that quality is expert production demonstrated through verified purity. And the verification is everything that I just talked about. Okay. So when you're going through this information that I just talked about, this is the art and skill of you buying quality oils. It's just kind of the way it works. So I'm going to end it there. I'm going to jump over here and see who's talking to me. Hey, from the Philippines, Jeremy, am I pronouncing your name right? I hope so, because I hate to get that stuff wrong. You're in Washington right now. Hey, coffee time. Okay. I'm here in Seattle. Look me up. Here's my email address. Talk to me. Anyway, Tracy, you're telling me I'm the king of essential oil information? I would like to think that, but I've learned from really good experts as well. There are so many really, really good people out there in aromatherapy, but I really appreciate that your comment. And you guys, this is really beautiful. I thank you. I appreciate the appreciation. I do want to, kind of promote a little bit here. I want you to, and if you're on YouTube, subscribe to my what do they call that? My platform. Subscribe. Go ahead. Subscribe, please. Link, like, everything else. All the things you should be doing. Press buttons. Okay. What that does, it helps to build a stronger community so that I can keep doing this. Actually, what do you mean I can keep doing this? I've been doing this for over 25 years. I'll never stop. I love sharing this information. And believe me, I am not giving away too much information. I'm giving you guys some information that you can work with, but there's a lot to learn. And, currently I don't have a lot online. I'm going to start building that up a bit. But if you'd like to bring me out to your spa, your resort, your community, your whatever, I love to travel. I like to come wherever you are. I'd love to go to the Philippines, so that would be cool. And you can bring me in. I do courses for your staff, training. I do plant-based. So if you want to understand the ingredients in your skincare, I do quality for plant-based skincare as well as essential oils, teach you how to use essential oils. And I also really like to do workshops for guests that are at spas, resorts, and places like that, wellness centers. I did one yesterday online. I was doing kind of an experiment with olfactory, studying your olfactory system, or not so much, but understanding your olfactory system and doing it by smelling oils that you don't know what they are. They're all numbered. And so experiential stuff like that will also help you determine quality. When you're smelling essential oil that you do not know the name of, you don't have the intellectual memory emotion connection. When you know it, your brain is a factor in what you're smelling. It matters. So when you smell an oil that you don't know what it is, you're getting a skill set to listen to the oil, to get the complexity, to understand its quality. And it's just a really nice way to work when you're doing it. But if you're buying the oils, you already know what it is. So it's difficult to do that. So, hey, let's have a class on that sometime. I can actually probably do that online, send everyone the numbered oils. I'm having ideas as I sit here talking to you guys. Because, if you have any ideas on these things, if you want me to, if there's a subject that you want me to cover, let me know, because I'll continue to do these live presentations, no doubt about it. And you can DM me here on LinkedIn. So with LinkedIn also, do the like, do the share, and you can DM me and talk to me there. So if you have some questions, doing it in these groups is, if you have questions, it's really the ideal way to do it, because I'd like to answer and have everyone hear it, And, I say this often, ask me a question, and if I don't know the answer, I'll make it up. And someone said, Jim, people may take you seriously on that one. In a way, that is a way that I do answer questions. And I'm not making it up like I'm just going to tell you a bunch of BS because it's fun. It is fun, but I don't do that. What I do is I have a history of learning, and this is another way to understand quality. Your history of learning is feeding you all this information. So when I get asked a question, all of that information gets stirred up a little bit. And when it gets stirred up, what's happening is it's producing an answer that may not be an answer that I know absolutely because I read it, but it's an answer that I take from logic, from connecting dots, and a bunch of, whatever else is in my brain that helps deliver those answers. And it's always fun when I'm a little bit challenged. So anyway, this is my website. This is where you can go to find me if you want to email me, DM me if you want to talk to me there. And wait a minute, let me kind of get rid of all that stuff, and I'm going to say goodbye. That wasn't what I wanted to do. That was. Anyway, always appreciate everyone here. Again, if you have a subject that you'd like me to cover, I'm more than willing to do whatever it takes to talk about whatever it is, and have fun. I just love doing this work. So I'm done. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you on my next stream, which is, I'm going to just do random ones, but I have one coming up in a month that I haven't titled yet. You'll see it posted on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Have a good one. Bye.